Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Bryan Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us, Bryan. How you doing?
I appreciate you having me here today. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. For those of us who aren't familiar, I see you around the like all around the internet. You know, we work in a lot of the same circles. I see you on the Party Corgi Discord, a whole bunch of other fun places. So, for those of us who are not familiar with you, can you give us a little background?
Sure. So I've been doing like web design development stuff, I guess, for a while now. So like 14 years. And so, sorry, I have my own audio playing back on like
Oh, do you have
something.
Twitch open in another channel? Because you'll have to mute the Twitch.
I didn't think so. Oh, there it is. It was minimized. Awesome. Cool. So you would think that like I don't do streaming on a regular basis with all that. So yeah, I've been doing web design development for about 14 years. Used to work at newspapers, before they fought back against online and won.
Mhm.
And then I did some work at a small agency for about 7 years. Led their design development team for a bit. And then for about the past 2 years, I've been what I consider myself to be a free agent developer advocate for things I care about. And about a year of that time was pretty significant into eleventy.
Mm.
And then most recently, for the past month, I've now been a DevRel at Sanity.io. So doing the same sorts of things I've been doing for about 2 years, but specifically for them going forward. So I'm super
Nice.
excited about that and to be part of that team.
Yeah, I mean the Sanity team, they're a good friend of the show, one of the sponsors. I've had Espen and Knut have both been on as guests or as in various support capacities. And so I'm super happy to have you on the team. Like I feel like that's a good group of people, and I think you're going to fit right in there.
Awesome.
We were actually talking before the show that Sanity actually powers some of the visuals of the show. So like what you're seeing right here with the wait over here, the name, and like Bryan's name and the title of the show down below, that's all actually stored in Sanity. So the same information that you're seeing on the website at learnwithjason.dev is the information that gets pulled into this overlay so that I don't have to go in and manually update a bunch of things when an episode's going to go live. So that's actually really fun. I've really liked using Sanity for that.
And we legitimately, I didn't know that until we just talked before. And we were talking about how, we're starting our streaming adventure on Twitch here as well. And how like, oh, what would be really cool? Building an overlay with Sanity. So it's amazing that
Yeah,
like there's already a proof of concept in the wild for that. And like the cool thing is it's exactly what you just mentioned, right? Where like a stream overlay, but also a website, you wouldn't think those pieces of data would connect well, but that's kind of the whole theory behind structured content as opposed to like the whole like tied together CMS.
right. Yeah, I mean that's I think that's what is kind of really interesting about the space that we work in right now. And so I want to talk about that, but first, there's a good question in the chat, which is, what exactly is a developer advocate?
That's an excellent question, and honestly, I feel like you are probably better suited to answer that. But for the most part, me having been a legitimate developer advocate for about a month and a pseudo my own style developer advocate for a couple of years, I just view it as an educator that's passionate about an area and wants to get as many developers, technologists, whatever, involved in that as they can. So for me, for about 2 years, the beginning of it was CSS. I'm super passionate about CSS. And then Jamstack was a pretty big thing for me that I kind of like latched onto after I started my own business. And then obviously when you're working for a brand, you're advocating for their tech stack, but also like everything around it. So it's not just
Mm.
necessarily, I'm gonna be like, you have to use Sanity. It's the most amazing thing ever, even though you should, and it is. But like everything that's around that and the whole Jamstack ecosystem, the bigger the Jamstack ecosystem gets, the better it is for Sanity and for all the other companies that are kind of residing inside of it, such as Netlify and others.
Yeah, and I think like developer advocacy is such an interesting space because it's like every company that I've talked to defines it a little bit differently, but the common thread that I've started to pull out is that if you start to think about a company's existence in the world as a Venn diagram, like on one side you've got the people who use the platform, and then you've got another circle which is the people who build the platform, and then you've got marketing, you've got education and docs, And right in the middle of that circle where everything overlaps, that's sort of where developer advocacy fits, because we need to be engineers because we have to be able to build and understand what the tools that we're attempting to get people to use. We have to work with customers. We have to work with people who are trying this out. We have to understand feedback, and we have to escalate that back inside the team. We have to make sure that we're routing, like when people struggle, we need to show our team how and why. We have to help marketing, because marketing is typically people who are very, very good marketers and don't have a lot of engineering experience. So we're helping like connect the marketing message to actual code. Hey, thank you very much for the bits, D. Thompson. That is wonderful. Great to see you here, by the way. And then you've got the other, like there's a support side to this. There's a documentation side to this. And so it's sort of what I like about developer relations or developer advocacy or developer experience, however you want to frame it, is that it's a great way if you are somebody who has a hard time staying in one lane. Like if you're interested in product, if you're interested in writing, if you're interested in building, all of these different things, developer advocacy is going to touch in all of those different lanes. And so you're going to get an opportunity to work across multiple modes across the business. So the frustrating part is you don't get to go deep, right? Like you rarely get to take a project and like go all the way to the bottom. Usually you're going to tee something up and get it started, and then you hand it off to an engineering team, or you like sunset it as a proof of concept or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that coin is that you get to do so much. Like I feel like my job, I've repeatedly called my job professional playtime. Like I just, like, how is it that, I get to host a TV show on the internet for a living? Like this is super weird, but it's also really fun. Like, the stuff is really, really rewarding, I think. And so it's a good spot to be.
And it's a cool thing because you get to do all sorts of different things too, not just different code, but like you have a whole audio setup we were talking about with like your rack setup and all that.
Yeah,
and you've got all this streaming stuff happening and videography and video editing. And, you don't have to be good at any one of those things. You just have to be pretty good at a lot of different things. And you get to experiment with the newest stuff. Like I started Twitch streaming in January. I like to say that I'm the last of the hipster live coders.
Yeah.
Like I got into it before it got cool with COVID, right? So like right before it got cool. Just barely before it got cool. But we get to do all these like really random things and see what sticks, and then like, place our bets on the things that seem like they are sticking. So
yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Quick shout out to the chat. Thank you, Jimena. Thank you, Pilo, and thank you, I think Steph Dev for the subscriptions, for the bits. Really appreciate it. Looks like we got a hype train going. This hype train thing is a whole new adventure, right? Yep. But what's up, chat? I think there were a couple other questions that I wanted to look at. Let's see. I
do want to give a chat shout out to Danny Thompson, who did those bits. He's a Memphis dev, and I no longer am a Memphis dev. I'm now a Michigan dev, but I'm wearing one of our Hack Memphis t-shirts from a hackathon a few years ago, and Memphis is always right here. So I appreciate the Memphis crowd, the MemTech crowd being here as well.
Excellent. Yeah. And like Danny, he's been such great. He's like, he shows up every once in a while. He's always wonderful. It is fantastic to have him in the chat. Brad asked, is it just an HTML page pulled in to OBS? Yes, that's exactly what it is. The whole design of this website is actually just an HTML page. So the HTML just kind of sets up a frame, and then there's transparent boxes, and my video and Brian's videos are set behind it. So what you're actually looking at is a Zoom call that I made look fancy. So yeah. So, and then I think there was one other question. Where did it go? I might have lost it.
And you can do a whole bunch of stuff too. Like I actually have mine hosted on Netlify. So on my channel, Bryan L. Robinson here on Twitch, I've got the Brob overlay on Netlify, and it's there, and I just ingest it into OBS, and it's got like nice rainbow backgrounds. I've got a unicorn on there that speaks when people chat certain things. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do, and could be even better, I think, as I start playing with Sanity, integrating that there.
Yeah, I just realized I screwed up my own. Bryan L. Robinson.
Yeah, Bryan L. Robinson. because of course
There it
Bryan
is.
Robinson was already taken, and I'm B Rob everywhere else on Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
So
you got in late. You were the last of the hipster live coders, so you didn't get the good.
exactly. I'm super early on Twitter. I've got a 4 letter Twitter handle. You don't get those anymore. But yeah,
I
I was a little
know.
bit late on Twitch.
Yeah. All right, and I see Cap's here. Good to see you. Cap's going to be on the show in a little while, actually, in a few months. So
Yeah.
great to have you here. Yeah. So all right, let's talk a little bit about what we're actually going to be doing today. And we sort of touched on it, like we touched on things like Sanity and things like Netlify, which are in the Jamstack space. But today we're specifically going to be working with eleventy, and eleventy
Yes.
is a static site generator. So can you tell us a little bit about like what's eleventy and what makes it different from other, chat, you can tell us, do we need to talk about what static site generators are? Respond, boop us if we need to. But in the meantime, do you want to talk a little bit about eleventy?
Sure. So I, like I said, like when I've been doing my own thing, I got kind of really into eleventy. So my Jamstack journey kind of began like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I got into Jekyll because I hate servers. I was literally actually at the time managing a huge rack space server for an agency that had like hundreds of sites, and like I'm terrified. Like I don't want to mess with servers, and so like we did our docs site for our internal use in Jekyll because we had a Ruby dev on staff, and so I was like, okay, let me experiment. I was like, oh, I love this. This is great. I can do all sorts of data stuff like with just YAML and JSON and stuff like that. And so like I got really into that, converted my site over to it, like went hard into static because I'm an old school. I love HTML. HTML is like super near and dear to my heart. And so I liked it, but I kept finding myself doing a lot of gulp tasks around it, like making these things work, like data fetching and stuff like that without touching Ruby because I don't really know Ruby. I could probably make it work, but it's Ruby. I'm a front end guy. I like JavaScript. And so I heard about this eleventy thing and I played with it and I said, this looks like Jekyll, but with JavaScript. And it's not like that. Like there's a whole bunch more to it than that, but it can feel like that. And I think the first thing I saw on it was there was a 24 ways post about it like 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was turning my Jekyll site up to eleventy, and it was basically converting a Jekyll site over to eleventy. And so I underwent that for my personal blog, and I did some other stuff, and I discovered there's just so much more it can do as a JavaScript developer inside of it. So it's all about rendering HTML to the browser. It doesn't have any opinions on the front end. You don't have to know React or Vue or Svelte or anything like that. You just have to have some knowledge around template engines, and it comes with a whole bunch of template engines, which I love. So like in Jekyll, we had Liquid, which was decent, and I like it well enough. We have that in eleventy. It's the default one for a lot of uses in eleventy. But we also get Nunjux, which is even more powerful. You can use JS template literals as your templating engine as well. And you can use handlebars. So you can kind of like, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do with it. It's all shipped with it, but you can use them one at a time, all at once. You can do a whole bunch of cool configuration, which I really, really love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, but.
Yeah, there were a couple questions about just kind of eleventy in general. I'm going to let's talk a little bit about what static site generators are in the abstract, because there were a couple people who booped for more information. So so we had we like, if you think about the traditional path for building a website was to write HTML. You would have, index.html, and you would start with the HTML tag and your whole everything, your body, your head and body tags, all of the markup. And this was fine for small sites, but what it led to was that, like, if you needed an about page, you had to copy paste a whole bunch of HTML over to the about.html and then only change a little bit in the middle. And so as time went on, this became kind of unmaintainable. If you remember the 90s internet, there were a lot of websites where you could kind of watch the progression of a website. It was like a time travel thing, because the homepage would be up to date, but as you clicked through older and older pages, you would see different iterations of the website. Which was actually kind of cool. It was like a geological dig, right?
Well, like a UX nightmare, right? Like super
It
interesting,
really
like
was,
archaeological, but like terrifying.
Yeah, it was exactly that, right? And so then we started seeing things like you would see CGI scripts or PHP is kind of born from this. Like PHP originally was designed as it was short for personal homepage, which it's no longer short for that. It's what are they? It's a recursive acronym. It's like also a backronym, which I love all the ways that we justify how we change names of things. But PHP
I've never
used to
heard
be
of the term backronym, but I like that.
well, yeah, it was personal homepage, and then they decided to change that. So now it's PHP hypertext preprocessor. So that, whatever.
Yeah.
But the idea was that you would run a server, and then a request would go into that server, and the server would interpret it, find the data, use a template, smash those things together, and return them. And this would all happen at request time, which is cool until you have too many people visit your website. Your server gets overloaded, it crashes, or your data for whatever reason is unavailable, and that causes a crash. And all of these things led to like scaling problems. So you saw this explosion in like, how do we scale things? You saw Docker containers, Kubernetes, things like that. And as this was happening, as we were trying to figure out how to scale servers, there was this other movement with things like Jekyll, where Jekyll and Hugo and there were some early Node ones like Hexo that yeah, exactly, right. They were all built from this idea. Well, what if we did that server style thing where we take the data and we take a template and we mash them together? But what if we did that first and then just served the asset instead of having to wait for somebody to request it? So we moved that that server-side rendering to build-time rendering, so that now I can say, here's my template, here are all my pages of data. I want to take all of this data, throw it into this template, and generate my HTML, and then I'm going to upload the generated HTML to a website, and everyone will interact with it as though it were just plain HTML. And so that's kind of the core concept of a static site generator, is you're working with just the data that changes, but you've got a template of what doesn't change, and you stick the data in to make that so that you as a dev are doing less repetitive work, and the outcome is still plain HTML that is really easy for everybody to use. You don't have any servers in between your users and the content they want to view. But where this gets interesting is like with stuff, as you mentioned, when you were using Jekyll. And so like I used Jekyll for a while, I switched to Hugo, and I hit the same hurdle. I don't write Ruby, I don't write Go. And so I was trying to make these things cooperate with me, and I just lacked the knowledge to use them the way that they needed to be used. So I was looking for a JavaScript solution as well. And it sounds like this is where you and I diverged, because you went to eleventy and I ended up on Gatsby. So I'm actually pretty new to eleventy. I did an episode, I dropped a link in the chat with Zach Leatherman, where we did
the brain behind it.
Yeah, Zach Leatherman is the creator of eleventy. And so he and I did an initial intro of, we called the episode Let's Learn eleventy. If you go to the Learn with Jason site, you can see it. If you scroll back in the chat a little bit, you'll see it as well. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between like something like Gatsby and something like eleventy? Like, why would you choose one or the other?
So for me, and again, like I'm coming with lots of personal and strong opinions. So first and foremost, eleventy is completely unopinionated around like frameworks, right? Especially around the front end. And there was actually a really cool tweet the other day Zach referenced that was one of those built with sites was trying to figure out how, like, they were like, we're working on getting our Nuxt built with support in, right? We're going to be able to show people what sites are built with Nuxt. And somebody had asked, are we going to get that for eleventy? And they said, we have no clue how to identify a site built with eleventy. And Zach chimes in, he says, that's intentional. That's like how it's developed. And it's because it ships nothing to the front end that you don't write in your templates. And so that goes for any front end code. So if you want to write your fancy JavaScript on the front end, you're writing your JavaScript for the front end. Everything is shipping is HTML that's rendered, right? So there's no rehydration. There's nothing out of the box that does any of that. I love HTML and I want to write as close to HTML as I can. So I love templating languages like Nunjux, like Liquid. They get me the feeling that I get out of HTML with the power that you mentioned in like why we use static site generators, right? I get includes, I get some dynamic things at build time. And then if I want to rehydrate it or bring in new functionality, I can progressively enhance into it.
Yeah.
Gatsby, Gridsum, Nuxt Next, these are amazing things for when you want a ton of interaction and you don't want to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So like you can ship all of your components in a Gatsby site to the front end too, and like it all takes over and becomes like kind of a single page application. eleventy is rendering HTML pages, and we're making sure that a fast CDN is in front of it so that those pages all get downloaded super fast. And it's quietly doing it. It's behind the scenes. No one on the front end's ever going to know. I think it's amazing for small to medium sites. So blogs, like agency style websites where you're making like a 15-page small business website. It's amazing for. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I think it's really, really amazing for. But if you want to bring your like super interactive stuff from a React or a Vue, you're going to do either some rewriting or some heavier front end work to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I tend to avoid a lot of that when I can, but those platforms are way better for that sort of thing. Although there's some Vue stuff coming in eleventy, which I'm hoping is going to be pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's there. I've heard Zach talking about that a little bit. That there's some Vue interop in eleventy that's at least in experimental phases, which is pretty exciting. So we've talked about it in the abstract, and I think that is like I would encourage anybody who's curious about this stuff. With static site generators especially, there is a reasonably short on ramp. So like I would encourage you, if you're kind of waffling between, use the ones that are in languages you know. That's going to make your life easier. But try everything out there. Build a little site, try to get some data, try to do something interactive, and get a sense for what, like, for your requirements, which one feels right for you. Because this is very much coming down to it's now a choice of flavors. Like static site generators are all going to do a great job for you. They're going to give you good benefits. We're not going to go into like the architectural, like why the Jamstack. There are lots of articles on that, and I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with the Jamstack, like to read about those architectural benefits. But like, let's assume static site generators in general are going to give you most of the benefits of the Jamstack kind of out of the box, right? So now it's not a choice of like good versus bad. It's more of a choice of preference. It's chocolate or strawberry or vanilla. You can kind of choose which one you like and which one feels best to work with, and get a lot of those benefits without having to, reinvent wheels or do anything like that. So today, though, I want to dig into eleventy, and so you were going to teach us not just about eleventy in general, but more specifically how we can like extend and customize it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's via there's some plugin functionality built into it. It's not necessarily quite as robust to say like Gatsby's plugin ecosystem, but there's a lot of cool things that we can do to kind of extend and make portable the things that we would have to configure in every project. Cool. And I want to mention the Green Greek in chat, the Sia and Sia.codes. She's got a few different articles on eleventy and data and a whole bunch of other stuff. And there's a link in chat, but like that work is great, and I read her stuff constantly. So definitely a good touch point for that.
Is your Twitch handle different than your Twitter handle, or am I just now realizing that you're the Green Greek and not the Green Geek? Oh no. Well, that's embarrassing. Sorry, Sia. Okay. All right. So
I always say Green Geek, but it is Green Greek. Yeah.
Man, that is like, my brain just never even bothered to read that word. I just saw. I was like, oh, that's definitely geek. Is what I saw. Okay. So let's write some code, right? So let's switch over to pairing view here, and I haven't pulled anything up yet, right? We're just sitting in like ready to roll mode. So what I am going to do real quick that I should have done before is I'm going to pull up your Twitter. Yep. So everyone should go and follow Bryan on Twitter.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
All right. And then if you want to look at eleventy, we have eleventy.dev. So the Green Greek Geek, I'm into it. So, and this is Sia, who I have been absolutely, I cannot believe that. Like, this is like, have you ever read, there's a paradox where like people earnestly believe that something was a certain way, like the Berenstein versus the Berenstain Bears, or like there's a bunch of people who very much believe that Nelson Mandela died in prison. And it's like becomes your reality. I feel like this is one of those moments. So so yeah, definitely go check out Sia. Spell her Twitter handle right. And we're ready. What are we going to do today?
I'll throw out one more link for you too,
Okay.
which is my own personal little initiative, and it's Plugity, like diggity, but plug11ty.com. So nope, sorry.
plug11
ty. Yep, plugity.com.
I'm so mad at you right now.
Blame Colby Fayok. It was his idea.
Colby, are you in
I'm
here?
Working on. I don't even know if he is, but yeah. So that is, I'm making like an open source plugin repository. It's using Netlify CMS's open authoring, so you can add your plugin at the top. I've got a dozen in here, and it's doing like a very like simple Alpine JS search because of course I had to learn new technology to do it. And so you can see like a few, like I've got a few different ones in here. I've got some of the basic ones in there, but it's copy and paste a lot right now. So like I haven't done as many as I should. But just some sort of simple search functionality, because it's not always listed on the plugin site on eleventy.dev. That's like the top like 20 or 30 there. So I was like, let's see if we can all as a community come together and build something like this.
That's super cool.
Right now it's just been me, and like there have been like 3 people that have submitted plugins. So the more the merrier. I'll accept any of them. Like,
all right. And if you're watching this, today's the day. You can create an eleventy plugin after you watch this stream, and you'll be able to go submit it here so that the rest of the community can find it. So on that note, how do I get started? Like, what should I do first if we want to do this?
So first and foremost, what we need to understand about eleventy plugins is that they are basically modular portable config files that you can then include in another project. So my first plugin that I wrote was actually, I found myself doing SVG contents over and over again. So like I wrote a short code, or actually it was a filter, it probably should have been a short code, that would go into my images directory, find an SVG that I listed the path to, and then spit that SVG's contents onto the page. So I'd have it as an embedded SVG as opposed to like using an image tag or something like that. Okay. I did it like on 3 projects. I made a plugin for it. So that all I have to do is say add plugin, I think it's called SVG contents, and I have it right there. I don't have to write that boilerplate code over and over again. So what we first need to do is create a directory, and we're going to make a small eleventy project inside of it. Okay.
So this will be eleventy plugins. Let's just call it eleventy plugins. That seems good. And then we'll jump in here, and I'm going to get a init, and let's open it in VS Code.
Nice. I like that you have a teach command. That's awesome.
It's a different settings for VS Code to like simplify the UI, use bigger fonts and stuff.
I need to get into that education automation. So we need a few things here. So we're gonna need to like initialize an npm package.json. I like to use npm init-y to just give me all the defaults. And then we need to install eleventy so we can test some things locally here. And then later we'll bring it into another eleventy project to test our actual plugin functionality of it.
So I'm installing it as a dev dependency, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could install it as regular dependency or dev dependency. It doesn't really matter. Since we're not actually hosting a site with it, it doesn't.
Yeah, so actually this is kind of a very interesting sidebar, which is that when you use NPM the way that most of us building websites use NPM, the dependencies do not matter because you're not like, it's the dev dependencies versus peer dependencies. That matters when you're shipping a plugin, because it's like when somebody installs your package, they need to know what they should and shouldn't install. But when you're doing it as a site, like it doesn't matter, because you can build, like you can include all of your dev dependencies in the built artifact, and it has zero impact on whether it was a dev or a regular dependency. This is something that's been becoming more and more clear to me, is like, because I used to care about this a lot. Like, is this a peer dependency? Is this a dev dependency? And I realized that I could not care less.
Yeah, exactly. It's whatever.
Okay, so here we go. We're installing eleventy. What else? What else do we need here?
We're going to have probably an index.html so we can test out some of our plugin functionality. Actually, let's make it an index.markdown so that we can write markdown around it. So it'll make it feel like a blog post. I don't want to go through the process of setting up like a collection and all that just for some small stuff. And let's give maybe a couple paragraphs of lorem ipsum in there too.
Okay, let me actually grab some lorem ipsum. I found a good one the other day. It was Phil Hawksworth found a Yorkshire ipsum, and it is a lot. I wanted him to actually do an like a live reading of this.
I would watch that. I would watch that every day. Twice a day.
It's just full of so many amazing things that I like.
Where's the muck? I don't even know what that means,
I have no idea. I have no idea. And I feel like a lot is one of those things where I don't want to read it out loud because like maybe this is super offensive and I just have never I've never read anything with this particular dialect. So it's just, well, okay. So now I have, I've got what up chat.
Some markdown.
Yeah. We've got some basic markdown. And like, I don't know, let's let's link something, right? So we'll just go to discord.partycorgi if you want to come chat with a bunch of cool folks who like to build things. All right, we're ready.
I'm in there. Jason is in there. It's all good stuff.
That's who I was talking about, the cool folks.
Exactly. Just the two of us, right? No one else?
just you and me, everybody. I'm kidding. We're the worst. It's everybody else who saves it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. You're all right. I'm definitely all right. So we also need an 11 config file. So that's going to be .11d.js in the root of our project.
Okay. So, and this is, this one.
Nope. Spelled out. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Like the worst part about 11 for me is that like all the blog posts I write about it, I always put like a parenthetical. Like I worry about SEO and stuff like that. So I'm like 11ty parentheses 11d, like so that I hit all those keywords.
I swear to God, I am not a violent person, but the next time that I see Zach Leatherman in person, I am going to give him the biggest noogie. Like I'm just in a headlock, just like, why would you do this to us? Because and it doesn't even stop. It's like, okay, so to install the plugin, we all observed, you have to use both the 11ty and spelled out. To go to the website, it's 11ty.dev. To follow on Twitter, it's not even spelled out. It's 11_ty. Zach is a monster and he needs to be stopped. He's a menace.
I would guess that he did that on purpose.
Yes, like he's a freaking troll. Like that's... okay, good. All right, let's configure 11d.
Yep. So the only thing we're going to do right now, because the only thing you don't actually even need to have this 11d config file to run 11d, which is awesome.
Actually,
it's
can
super handy though.
Can we do that first? I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna delete the file. Okay. And then to run 11d, I'm gonna add a script for it, but we could do it out of whatever. So let's build, and all I need to do is just run 11d, right? Like this.
So if you want to build it, you're going to run 11d. If you want to serve it and watch it, it's 11d-serve.
Okay, so let's do both. And we'll call this one dev. Okay.
And for the most part, we're not actually going to worry about building because we're not making a website. This is a plugin. People are going to be pulling it into their sites and running it there. So you can see it's using browser sync and all sorts of stuff. We click one of those links and we have our simple HTML page. Now we don't have any framework around that. So it's literally just H1 and those paragraphs and that one anchor tag and not actual like good HTML. Save it. It should live refresh because it's using browser sync.
I think my computer's running a little slow lately, and I'm thinking it might be reaching end of life because it's always trying to reload over here.
Yeah.
But it just
I see it. What up, chat friends is in there. I see.
Yeah, it's like it's fine. This is not 11d. This is my poor little compooper. finding on its last legs.
Yeah, so let's do one more little piece of boilerplate that
Okay.
we need before we even get into the config file, right? We're
Okay.
going to create a template area to use.
All
And by
right.
default, there's some configuration that's already in there. And one of them is you put your templates into underscore includes as a directory.
Okay.
You can configure that in your 11d.js config file. I usually don't, just because I don't mind what that is. But if you want to move it, it could be like templates or whatever else, and then you configure it. I don't think that's important for today. Inside of here, we can create some sort of base template file. We're going to go with Nunjux because I like Nunjux personally. So let's do base.njk as a file.
And I just found out it might not be my computer. CJ says that you need a body tag or browser sync won't work. So yeah,
we're gonna fix that right now.
Yep. So should I just do like a regular old HTML boilerplate?
HTML:5 boilerplate. Yep.
Is mine? Oh no.
It should be just type HTML and you should.
I think I've disabled this.
Oh, well, and you're in a Nunjux file. I had there are plugins and syntax highlighters and all that for Nunjux and for Liquid. It doesn't recognize that as an HTML file.
Let's see. Let's add a Nunjux.
On the fly.
Nunjux. Okay, so I
that's
installed...
a fair point too in chat. 5T 3F. You can go in the bottom right. You can change it from Nunjux to HTML, and that'll also work in the bottom right corner of VS Code. That's a handy thing too.
Oh, and that'll just work.
It'll make it render as HTML according to VS Code.
That's what we needed. Good tip, chat. Pro tips from the chat. Yep. Okay, so now I've got. Let me close up that sidebar.
We have our simple template, but if we save this and then go into our index.markdown and tell it to use this, our markdown content won't come here. We have to create a slot for our markdown content to come into. But if we want to go ahead and show that, we can. Front matter, you're already a step ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
we're gonna say you're fine. You're
sorry,
fine.
I'm off to the races.
This is all
here.
boilerplate.
Here we go.
So yeah, at the top of this, we're just gonna say those 3 dashes and give it a layout : that layout that we just made. So base.nunjux, base.njk.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And we don't have to do the include because eleventy is assuming that directory, and that's the root of all of our layouts.
Gotcha.
Is that directory.
Gotcha.
So if we save this, our HTML, our actual document on the page should now be blank because we no longer have the markdown content coming in theory.
Excellent. Okay. So now we have, so it's going to include this layout. So if I save this, what I believe will happen. Oh no.
Blank. That's
so check this out. Now we do have, or I guess if I view source instead, there's that browser sync, which is what we wanted. Now that we've got a body tag, we can actually use it. And it included like our document, which we have over here. So if we change this, right, save that, and now refresh. And so it is pulling in our template, but we're missing all of our content.
Yes. So we have to tell Nunjux, and this is the same for Liquid and some of the other templating languages, where to place the content that it gets from that page. And so for us right now, we can just go inside those body tags, and we're going to do what's called a template expression in Nunjux. Is called a template variable in Liquid. Same thing, 2 curly braces on either side, and that's going to pull in some sort of variable. In this case, we want it to be content. That is the default variable for the content of a page. And then if you're using Nunjux and not Liquid, it's going to assume this is going to be malicious markup coming in, and it's going to print it as a string on the page, and you have to use the safe filter on this. So give it a space, give it a pipe, and this is going to be our first little template filter. And we're going to just put the word safe, and that's going to allow this to render as HTML as opposed to just a string of HTML that gets put into our template. Okay,
so now doing this, now we can see if I view the source again, here's all of this markup. And like this is actually worth calling out. So what we've done here is, because this is getting built it's like a compiled page and not a client-side rendered page, Like if you view source on a React single page app, you would see like a div ID app and nothing else, right? Because the view source is just going to show you what's from the server. So because we're doing this with eleventy, it's injecting the code before it serves it. So the actual output is going to be, if we look over here,
It's going to be absolutely lovely HTML rendered
site
in the DOM.
index.html.
Yep.
Look at it. So this is the finished page. Like this is built. And that's really nice. Like that is a very cool setup that like we don't have to, we don't have to worry about whether JavaScript is disabled. In fact, like we're not loading any JavaScript, so it doesn't matter if JavaScript is disabled. The only JavaScript that's running is the browser sync, which is only for dev. So like we could ship this site and this would get perfect hundreds on Lighthouse because there's no JavaScript, no blocking code. Your time to render would be more or less instantaneous.
Great SEO for what up chat and all those good keywords that you stuffed in there.
Kill it. We would take over the internet. This corner of the internet is ours, Rob.
100%.
Like we got it, chat. Here we go. So then what? Now what do we do? We've got, so this is our output folder. And actually this is something that is maybe worth just mentioning real quick. We don't ever work in here, right? So I actually, it's a good idea to just remind ourselves that we don't want it. And then I'm also going to ignore node modules so that we don't accidentally commit those. And I think that's all we'll need today, right? Anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. And there's actually a question in chat from CJ asking how would you go about adding a front-end library like Vue or React or Svelte? You would add it by basically bundling it yourself inside of all of this and then shipping that as a static asset and then linking to it in your header or however you want to do that. So with a script tag, pulling in that file, old school. Like, I don't know, like I hate saying it, but like eleventy is so old school in like the absolute best, my favorite ways. But I'm also old, so take that for what it's worth.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of comes down to the necessity, right? Because if you have complex apps and the process of doing it through script tags and the actual setup of all this stuff is going to take you a really long time and it's finicky and like breaks easily, then it makes sense to switch over to one of the more advanced frameworks. But like if you're just trying to add one interactive element, like you want to have a modal window or something and you just want to use React for that so it's a little more reactive, like you can do that using just straight script tags as opposed to having to build out a whole Webpack process and all these things. So I think it's trying to find that trade-off. Like there's a point on the spectrum where it becomes so much work that it's worth switching over to a tool. But on the other side of that spectrum, it's so much work to set up those tools that if you could just do it by pasting in some JavaScript tags, like why not? Why not do it that way?
And there's actually an interesting conversation. I'm going to name drop the New Dynamics Slack channel about like how to, there's actually like this great thread. It was like 90 messages long that was like, how do you bring a framework into eleventy? And like, there are people using Gulp, and that's how I used to do it. Gulp's not cool anymore, I hear. I don't know. I didn't actually learn Gulp 4 like I should have, and so I just moved on. You could bring your own Webpack config. But one of the things that's really interesting is transforms in eleventy allow you to take outputted content from this process, right? So that HTML file that we just created and run it through some sort of transformation. You can do it with a JavaScript file too. So if you wanted to like build your JavaScript and then set up your Webpack configuration or set up like, or CSS, and you want to use just a little bit of post CSS and not bring like an entire build process with you, you could set up a transformation on your CSS files that does like a purge or does a auto prefix or something like that in your eleventy build. And that's I haven't done it yet. Like it's just kind of a theoretical thing that was talked about, but really interesting that you don't actually have to bring a build process with you because eleventy can function that way for certain cases. We're not going to do that today because that's like, I haven't done it and I would completely blow that. But it is something that you could set up a plugin for and have like an eleventy auto prefixer plugin that ingests a CSS file that goes into your site folder and does a transformation on it. And it could be super cool. I,
Mhm.
again, don't know what that would take exactly, but there are all these things that you can do inside of eleventy as well. That's
Yeah.
a random aside, but yeah.
Cool.
All right, so yeah,
Yeah.
we've got a page rendering with all of our stuff.
Yes.
That's good. We do need that configuration file.
Okay, let's get that config file back in here. So
Yep.
that's at the
No, this was
root
just to illustrate.
dot
Yep.
11t.js.
Yep.
All right.
And like that, it's just really cool that all those things just work without this. Like
Mhm.
Nunjux is not actually the base templating engine. Liquid is the default, but because we use the NJK extension, eleventy knew what to do with it.
That's
So
super
we could
cool.
also make a liquid.liquid template, use that instead, and it would render using the liquid engine. So you don't even
Nice.
have to configure a lot of that stuff if you name things correctly. Anyway, we need to set up our boilerplate for our eleventy configuration file.
Okay.
And the main thing we need here is we're just going to do a module exports. So module.exports equals, and we're going to export a function.
Okay.
So function parentheses, and we want to pass into that function the eleventy config object. So you can name it eleventy config. You can sometimes see it as just config. I usually stick with eleventy config just because that's what all the demos on eleventy.dev show that. So now you save that. We theoretically won't break anything, but we now have access to a lot of this. So we can write our first piece of our plugin inside of these curly braces, right?
Okay.
Inside what we're going to export out to eleventy. So I thought we'd start pretty simple and we'd make some content tools, starting with a really bad idea. A really bad idea that you should never give like clients or anything else.
Okay.
And I want people to be able to resize text in Markdown or in any template
Oh no.
based on a template tag.
Brian.
So like we got this. When I worked at an agency, people wanted this functionality and we said no every time. But for Learn with Jason, we're going to let you do whatever content size you want for random strings inside your Markdown.
Yes. Okay. I'm ready. Let's ruin this website.
So it's important to know that all these things that we're going to do today, you can do without setting up a plugin. They're all just eleventy things that come out of the box. You can set up custom filters, short codes, template tags, linters, all sorts of stuff. So we're going to make our first custom short code for this.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, to just point out everything that we're building, all that's here is eleventy. Like we're not importing extra stuff. And so this is what's in eleventy, right? So we can just do this however.
Depending on how far we get,
sure.
Like we may import a couple other things for some fancier stuff later on. But for this one, we're going to write 3 lines of code. And we're going to have a filter or a short code set up that we can use in our Markdown and our templates.
All right.
So first we're going to reference our eleventy config object. And there's a method on there for adding what's called a paired short code.
Okay.
So there's 2 different types of short codes. One is just the short code you put a couple variables inside of, and one is something that you put like on either side of some text. And we'll get into that in a second. We're going to do add. This is all camel case. Add paired short code. Paired is in like there are 2 of them. Yep.
Short code camel case like the C?
It is not. No.
Okay.
Good thing I have my cheat sheet. All right, and this is going to be a function, and we're going to pass into it 2 arguments, 2 properties. The first of which is going to be the name of our short code, and this is how we're going to reference it in all of our templates. So it's just a string. We're going to call this size. Name doesn't matter. It's all whatever you want to be as long as you're consistent with that. And then the second argument is going to be a function that is going to handle what happens, and it's going to be 2 things we're going to be giving it.
Okay.
The first inside that is going to be the content that is inside that paired short code. And then the second one is we're going to give it a size of some sort. So I would just say size as our variable or whatever you want to call it, text size.
Okay.
And then we're going to return back directly in this function. You can do any logic you want, right? It's just JavaScript. But we're going to start super simple, and I'm going to return back some HTML. So we're going to do a template literal, and we're going to put a span around our content. We're not going to get super fancy yet. So just span and that curly bracket or that right angle bracket. We're just going to do a span right now.
Oh, I understand.
I want to make sure that we're all working. Yep. And then we're going to use that template literal notation to do interpolation, I guess. Yep. And just that content variable. And then close our span. When we save this, we may have to restart eleventy depending on when it picks things up. But if we go ahead and restart eleventy and refresh the page, I was about to say nothing will have changed because we also didn't use the short code yet.
Right. Okay.
Gotta use what we make too.
So let's go do that.
So inside of our Markdown, yep. Whatever text you want to make huge.
I mean, here we go.
We use corgis. Yep. So we're going to write a template tag, right? So just like this would be how you do like a loop or a conditional. It's going to
Is
be
it double?
not the double curly bracket. It's single with a percentage sign.
I got you. Okay.
Yep. And then on the other side, like so give it a space and then do a closing version of that too. Reverse.
Got it.
Yep. All right. And then inside that, we're going to use the name that we created, right? So size, and then space, and then the first of a series of arguments. In this case, we only had the one. It is going to be, I think what would be best would be like the actual size and unit in a string. So like 55px inside of a string.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. And then on the other side of your link, you're going to end this with a curly bracket percentage sign end size and do the same and do that same closing on that as well.
Like this?
End size. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Save that in. If we have any errors, it'll error in the console. If we don't, we'll go back to our browser and
no errors.
Hopefully no change will have happened except for there should be a span around our corgis now.
Here it is.
There it is. We have successfully created our first shortcode. It doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead and toss in here in this template literal style equals font dash size, and then we'll interpolate that in as well. Yep, that should be good.
Look at it go.
Boom.
This, that's I mean, we've already got serious client vibes.
Oh yeah, like this is exactly what any of my clients in the smallest businesses would eat up. But I mean, if you don't want to add emphasis for, accessibility, even though if you're making it this big, maybe you actually want it to be accessible, whatever. You could add a strong tag in if you want to make sure that people knew that we were emphasizing it or what.
Sure.
We're just going to make it huge just for people who aren't using any sort of accessibility thing, because let's not hurt anyone else. So like literally we've written our first short code, and if somebody were to install this on their computer and then reference it as a plugin in their eleventy configuration, they would have the short code ready to go.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
This is like legitimately a plugin as it stands right now.
Yeah.
Now we can either do that or we could write a second piece and then import that somewhere else too.
Yeah, why not? Let's do that. So I have a like a base site, and let me see where this is. It's, I think, base template. That's not it. Let's go find.
I like that you're guessing at the URL instead of like going to your all your repos and finding it.
I know. I should be demo based. That's the one we want. All right, so let's use this as a template. I'm just going to set up a new thing. We'll put it on Learn with Jason, and we're going to call this 11D plugins.
Do you have enough organizations that you're part of, Jason? Do you need some more?
Please invite me to your organizations. That's definitely what I need. Okay, so let's get this one, and then I'm going to out here. Let's go back, and then we will clone. No. Yeah,
because that's what you named it. Yeah. You can rename it in the clone.
I'm going to rename it to 11D plugin because that's actually what it was. And then this is the thing that will use the plugins. Well, actually, I can think about this later. It doesn't matter.
That naming is going to bite you later. Like I guarantee having a singular and a plural is going to be terrible.
I will regret this. Okay. So let's jump in here. And this site is set up. Okay. Yeah. So this is also an 11D site. And so this is set up to use Liquid, but it's kind of
I should have mentioned this, right? This is actually, you can set up template language specific short codes and filters. So you can make a Liquid one versus a nunjux versus a handlebars. However, you can also make universal ones. And as long as you do your work properly, they work kind of across the board. I've got a plugin called 11D Blog Tools that has a couple that I wrote specific nunjux around to give some syntactic sugar that was only available by using nunjux. And so you still got, it was a CodePen and a YouTube embed, I think. And you still got those embeds, but if you were using nunjucks, you could use a different syntax and get something a little bit easier.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So you can kind of bind this to whatever you want. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's some features in nunjucks that aren't available in eleventy that aren't available in handlebars.
I like Potch. What's up, Potch? Good to see you in here. He's recommending the Jock Rock voice, which is the Jock Rock voice? Is it just like, wait, is that like a shock jock? Like, make the logo bigger, or is there a different voice for Jock Rock? Also, John with the good troll on just adding more underscores. I think that's a good idea.
Oh yeah, it's like instead of having like a versioning, you just say final, finalist, final, finalist.
Actually, final dot final dot really final. Yeah,
exactly.
Just okay, so
add more underscores.
Here's a kind of a baseline demo site, and what we can do is I think if I create an index.md and I delete the index.html,
you could also use this in index.html.
What?
This is going to be useful in any file type that is supported by the way that we're doing it. So HTML will render as a liquid template by default inside of eleventy, and our shortcode will work inside of that.
That's amazing.
Again, all by default, because somehow Zach kept it all in his brain to do that.
Okay, so I think what should happen now is I broke everything. How?
Perfect.
The thing that I broke is, it doesn't like something. Tag size not found. And it's because we haven't included it yet. So so
we need to add a plugin.
Okay.
That's all we're going to have to do to fix this. So let's go into our eleventy, and let me put my cheat sheet on this too, because I always forget the exact syntax. We're going to, inside of our eleventy config, we're going to use that same eleventy config object, and there's a method on this, just like add filter, add shortcode, there's add plugin, camel case again.
Okay. eleventy config dot add plugin.
Yep. And then inside of that, I suppose we also, outside this, we need to require it into this page. So we're not installing it. The typical way of doing this would be to publish this to NPM and download it as a dependency of the app, and then require it in. Here, we're going to require it from the other place, and we just need to require that entire directory. You can also require the eleventy config file, but this just works as well.
Wait, so how would this work? Because it's not pointed to.
I suppose you have to make sure it's set in your entry for your package.json. So you might want to go ahead now.
Okay, so let's go do that. So let's let's move into. Oops, I'm in caps lock. Let's go to eleventy plugin, and then I'm going to open this one separately.
Yep.
Okay, and so in our package.json, we need to set a main file.
The main. Yep, the main should be .eleventy.js.
Okay, so then when we include this, it should give us.
Sorry. Somebody in chat saying that I'm the designated adult. I am by no means the designated adult. It is not happening. Anyway.
Do we have? Are we not getting audio on the overlays today? Did they not work?
Let's.
Oh, are my overlays just not working like at all?
That's sad.
Oh.
I mean, the boops happened earlier.
Yeah, what gives? Let's maybe just rerun this. Let's just refresh this page. Figure out why it's not doing what I want. Try it again. Come on, little computer.
Boop us.
Huh. Something broke. I think I need here we go. Adult supervision here. All right. Something's going on. It's working. It's beta software.
Makes sense.
Early release. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I have now included this eleventy plugin, and I've called it eleventy size plugin.
Perfect.
So that's not going to work
inside that.
I'm just going to call it size plugin because you can't
start
it with
a number, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Size plugin. Well, this is going to be more than just our size plugin. This is going to be like a content helper plugin, but names don't matter. It's fine.
We can fix that later.
We can, yeah, we'll do it live.
And do I just drop it in like this?
You drop it in like that. Now there is a second argument that we'll get into if we have time later on that will be our configuration options, but we don't have any of those yet. So you add that plugin, you're gonna have to restart eleventy because it errored out and is gonna struggle otherwise.
I got you. Let's fix this.
And now if I've done my job properly and you typed properly, we should be good.
No errors.
And now
there we go.
There it is.
Look at it go.
Yep.
So now
we've created our first plugin.
We've done it. And you can see that it's like, this is composed, right? So this is the site that's the kind of the demo. And then we've got the text that came from our markdown file, and then we were able to just drop in this size plugin. So that is pretty that's pretty awesome that just worked, that it, just happened.
No problem. Yeah. And like that's the thing. Like I often like start with like the actual template syntax because that's how I think. Like I'm a very visual person. I consider myself a designer who codes, and so I want to like see what I'm gonna get. It's my own like unit testing almost. It's like I need my thing to have these arguments, and then I error it out until I get there. So we now have the absolute worst shortcode in existence. The client approved size increase.
Wait, I can make it better.
All right. Oh no, not another digit.
There we go. Now it's perfectly. Better.
I feel like the exclamation point should be inside of it though. Like I'm missing that exclamation point.
You're probably right. Okay.
Just from a branding and design perspective.
Yeah, that was right. That was the right call.
Yep. Oh, and yeah, holy buckets, indeed. So where we can go from here is one of a couple directions. We've got about 30 minutes. I'll talk about eleventy all day, but I'm sure everyone has places to be. We could create another paired shortcode to do a block quote accessibly, because Markdown you can do a simple block quote, but you can't put any sort of citations in. You can't put any sort of like attribution in. It's just a big block quote. So we could do that. We could also do a transform that would be taking the headers on a page and creating anchors and IDs around them to be jump links for the page.
Let's do that because the interesting part, I think, is getting into how eleventy interacts with content, because I think the block quote would be more of like writing HTML, which is super valuable, but I think that it doesn't dig into the internals of eleventy as much.
Okay. So I'm going to give a shout out. This is actually a simplified version that we're going to walk through today of there's a version of this in Andy Bell's Hylia theme, his Hylia 11D starter, which is a super great, super opinionated theme. It runs the That's My Jamstack website. I need to build my own site for that, but it currently runs this. It comes with a whole bunch of stuff. It comes with some really good CSS opinions and some really awesome 11D things behind the scenes as well. One of which we're going to do kind of a simplified version of this transform today.
Nice. Cool.
So let's go ahead and dive back into our plugin singular directory, I suppose is where we are. And we're going to create a new piece. So the important thing to know is you can build these in any ways you want and like require them into your final 11d.js, or you can write them all just in this one file.
Gotcha.
For today, I'm keeping us in the one 11d.js, but you could like configure it to have a whole directory of these that you then import into your final product.
Totally.
So instead of doing a shortcode, instead of doing a filter, we're going to do a transform. So we're going to start in a very, very similar way. And we're actually going to break the heck out of our site to start with, which is going to be super fun.
Good. I'm ready.
We're going to do 11dconfig.add transform.
Add transform.
These in 11D were originally called filters until we got our template filters, and then the naming convention was terrible.
Sure.
And so this is going to be a very, very similar thing. The first argument is going to be the name that we give it. Naming on this doesn't matter because we're not actually going to use it. You can call it like header bookmarks or jump links, or naming's the hardest thing in dev. So
header jump link sounds good to me.
Yep. All right. And then it's going to take a second argument, which is going to be which is going to be our function, and that's going to have two arguments inside of it as well.
And the first one is content again?
Going to be content. Yep, it's going to be what is coming into our transform. And the second one is going to be the output path. And that's going to be for every file that runs through this transformation, what that path is going to be. And it's going to allow us to specify a little bit more about what we want this to run on. So just to start with, we're going to do a very small conditional. So just
Okay.
a standard JavaScript if, and we're going to check to see what the file type is. So if output path ends with .html is basically what we're going for here. Yep. Then we're going to run everything inside of it. This will keep it so that if you have like static assets coming through, it's not going to try to run this transform on CSS, on random images. That would break things pretty badly.
Okay. Can I do a thing that is just like one of my little quirks? I like the shortcut style so that we end up with fewer levels of nesting. So basically, instead of wrapping all the logic, we just like early exit basically.
It'll run a little bit better, yeah. Like half a millisecond faster. I'm down.
Really, what I'm going for is whenever I look at code, the more nested it is, the harder it is for me to visually trace it. So by swapping it this way, it kind of encapsulates that logic. We want to quit early if it's not HTML.
Well, if you got like this is like a one use thing, right? But like if you wanted to have multiple transforms, you could do it all in one big transform and then like run it through multiple things, checking file type, and like maybe do a switch statement or something.
That'd be super cool. Yeah.
I've only kind of scratched the surface on transforms because they're like a pretty big topic overall. But let's do something. Let's experiment and see what happens when we save this file to our site. And I'm going to, spoiler alert, bad things happen.
Oh, CJ has a good question. Do I need to return the content if nothing changed? Like just return as
Dang
is?
it, CJ, like yes, but that was what was going to break. You're stealing my thunder. This is running through everything, right? Every file on the site is getting run through this, and it's going to erase it if you don't return the content back.
Oh, so we would just get empty files.
Empty files.
I like that.
100%.
That was like a wrestling finishing move.
Clip it. Yeah. C. Gennaro is asking, is that possible to add a custom file extension? I can't quite read the end of that chat. With this, yeah, I think so. I don't see why not. It's just, well, what's happening, right, is that this is eleventy takes the templates and then creates things out of it. This is what it's creating out of our markdown file in this example. So it's creating an HTML file in the output. So the output path is, in this case, it would be _site/index.html. So that's what we're checking against. So potential issues around that. You'd have to convince eleventy to spit back out a custom extension at that point. Possible. It can happen that way, but not great. And so also, if we don't short circuit it, we also want to return the content as well. And we'll change that content to be a modified content in the end.
So in the end, like right now, if we run this, nothing happens.
Exactly. It looks if we've done this correctly, it'll return every page, and every page should look identical to what we've got, which is good to know, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like with console open, you'll get any errors that are coming out of it like automatically, which is nice. So yeah, so let's go ahead and do something. But to do something, what we're actually getting is the stringified version of our HTML, right? It's just a big HTML dump onto this page for the content. And you like console log that and you'll see the entire HTML for the page. But we need something to navigate this with. There's a few different NPM packages out there that all work pretty well. If it's all right with you, Jason, we'll use JS DOM if you're good with that.
Sure, yeah.
And so we're going to require... Oh, go ahead.
There's a question. These transforms, these are going to run after the templates are generated, right? So like we're going to turn this index.md into an HTML file and then run transforms on it.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to go ahead and console log out the input or the output, right? So if you console log content, you'll see it's the string of HTML, right? Which is what the browser wants.
All right, so let's
say that we're gonna get a big bump.
Stop and start, and I just saw it. So let's pull this up and take a look.
Slash HTML. Yep.
Here's all of the HTML and the styles and everything, and like here's the output. So we're getting the rendered HTML, this is not a this isn't a pre-transform. This is like a post. This is post processing.
Correct. And I don't know, and there might be something about this somewhere. I don't think there's a pre-transform, but a pre-transform would basically make eleventy into its own full like task runner plus static site, which would be amazing, Zach, if you're listening. But I don't think that exists. But like I said, transforms I've only played with a little bit. And again, that's kind of that conversation we were having in the new dynamic Slack. Like, it can be its own little task runner for anything that you can do with an npm package, or anything you can do with JavaScript you can do in eleventy. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's install up our JS DOM. So it should just be JSDOM as our package.
And I'm only including it as a dev dependency because I started eleventy as a dev dependency, and now that I'm doing that, I'm actually realizing that that's not going to work because we're going to publish this as a package eventually. So it needs to be a regular dependency, or else npm wouldn't include it.
True. Yeah, because it has to be like, these things have to be like.
So let me go
there
fix
at runtime.
that. These are going to be regular dependencies. Done. Okay. So now over here we have JS DOM is installed.
Yes.
And now we need to use it.
So we have to initialize it, and you can do all this outside of your exports. So you can do it like at the top of the file, const JS DOM, we require it in, and then we have to like get the JS DOM object. So we can say const and then destructure that into just all caps JS DOM as the thing that we're actually going to end up using.
Oh wait, so like we need it like this?
Yep. Yeah, equals JS DOM, equals all lowercase JS DOM. No, sorry.
I think will that
work?
Yeah, that'll do the same thing, because if we're including it as JS DOM, then we can just destructure it here.
Beautiful. I'm not always.
We'll find out. This may blow up in our faces.
Exactly. Yeah, and who knows if Node supports the same things as whatever. We'll try it. So now we can use that down below, right, to actually get a DOM, basically a fake DOM of our page. So inside of our conditional, or I suppose we're not in a conditional in yours because you do the reverse. We're going to basically instantiate a new DOM. So const DOM equals new JS DOM, basically, with the content string as what we want to be the DOM.
Like this?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yep. And then just to make it a little bit easier, a little syntactic sugar, we're also going to set up our document so that it feels like we're working with browser.js, and we're going to say const document equals dom.window.document, just so that we've got that to make it feel, like I said, like standard JavaScript.
Okay.
Yep. So now we can access like anything inside of it if we wanted to. So we could find our headings. We could find any selector we want by using the same things that we would use in browser code, right? So if we wanted to find our H1 on the page, we could console log our
and can we use like
query selector. Yep. And then any query selector works in here. So we do that. And if we have an H1, we should get the H1 back.
Let's try this. I'm excited.
In our console. Yeah.
Okay. So we should see an H1 get logged.
Theoretically.
And here it is. So we logged a DOM element, so it's kind of truncated, but that it's doing what we expect, right? So if we got into the prompt,
what we want out of it.
Cool, perfect.
Yeah, yep. So now we have to figure out like what do we want our plugin to do, and so really what we want to do is find a certain size of header on the page, and then add a link and an ID with that, right? So our H1, H2, H3, whatever we choose for that, and we can set that up to be configurable if we have time. So we'll try to go fast. We've got time to configure it. We can basically say end user, tell me what selectors you want me to transform in this way, and then we're going to put a link next to that, an anchor tag next to it that references that header. So you can put like a little link icon, a bookmark icon, a possum, a boop, whatever you want.
Sure.
We could do that. So what we need to do is we'll start, since our current one has an H1. Let's go ahead and in the query selector, change it to query selector all. And let's list out H1, H2, H3. And let's get multiple headers, even though we only have the one. This will only return back.
Yeah, let's fix that real quick. We'll do a header level 2, and then down here we can do header level 3. Nope. Okay, So now we've got a couple different levels of headings, right?
Yep.
Um,
1, a 2, and a 3. That's perfect.
yeah.
And
So
then
now
I'll
we
give
should
us
get
some
one
test
each.
cases. Yep. And so this is going to return back not an actual array, like an array-like thing. So we will need to destructure that. So let's put it in the array and do the spread operator and all that in our returning headings.
Like that?
Should be on the other side. Although if that works, I don't know. Like again, not
This
always ES 2019
should
compliant.
work, I think. I don't know. Let's try it.
I've always seen it on the other side, but I also know you can destructure with a variable call.
Yeah, I do things that I just assume work. Let's see. It didn't explode, so I think we're in good shape.
And we have 3 headers. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're in an array, and that's all good too. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to loop through that with a for each, and we're going to do something to each of those. So headings dot for each, pass in the heading.
Okay.
Good old arrow function. Yep. And then we want to grab the text content because we're going to use that to form our ID. And we're also going to need one more NPM package. We're going to need to slugify this to make sure that it works in an ID because an ID doesn't want spaces and stuff like that. So we're going to slugify it. If you want to do like a regex, go for it. By just
we can
package.
do it that way. So let's just do a quick slug. We'll do text dot replace, or we'll go text dot to lowercase, and then we'll replace any, and like this is going to be like a very rough version, but basically what we'll say is any non-word character, and then we want that to be global, and then we will replace that with a hyphen. And let's see.
I suppose we could also just have this be a number. Like it could be like the count of the for each, to be honest. But
well, at this point though, I just got to see if I did this. Like, can I write?
I like how.
Can I do this on the first try? Let's find out.
Yeah. See, it's like, wow, live coded regex. I'm with you. I could not do that.
No, I screwed it up.
Yeah.
Two lowercase. What?
Of undefined. Okay, this isn't your fault. We've done something earlier wrong, apparently.
Oh
so
my!
Let's see
computer,
what happened there,
I swear to God. Okay.
Let's see. What is text? Text is heading.inner text.
Does that
we
not
have to
work?
figure out if that's try inner HTML. It might JS DOM may not have inner text. I don't know how close it is in feature parity.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's try it again.
It may be there. I don't. Yeah.
First try. Okay, so there are things that we would want to clean up on this, like we would want to replace trailing tags and stuff like that, but I don't care. So
not important at all. Yeah.
Yeah, this is good enough for close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades, right? So we can make that work.
Exactly. So what we need to do is create an anchor that is referencing that, and also add that ID as an attribute onto the header, right? So heading dot attribute add an ID, basically, just like you would in the DOM in the browser. So yeah, attribute.
Is it ID. Add attribute or is it just attribute?
I think it's just attribute ATTR. I think. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. All right.
So sorry, no, you're set attribute.
Set attribute.
Yeah. Camel case.
Okay.
All right. So we're setting the ID of each of our headings to the slug that we created for it, and then we're going to create an anchor for each of them. So we'll do document.create element for an anchor tag.
Do I need to?
It may work as like a string literal, but I don't trust myself live for that.
So we'll document.create element.
Yes.
It's going to be an anchor tag, and then we need the href. Or actually,
we're going to set the href. You can set attribute href on that as well. You could probably continue stringing the dot notation along too.
We just want, we want slug like this. Right? Am I doing this right? This feels wrong.
Yes. No, that should be right as long as link.href works. I've got a set attribute on the href, but
we can use set. I think with DOM elements, let's do what you're doing, because I think that consistency is a good idea. But with a lot of DOM elements, if you know the property, you can just get away with heading.id and stuff like that.
Well, and prop versus attribute always makes me a little nervous when I'm moving it between like Node versus browser and stuff like that. And then let's set some inner HTML because I think you'll need that in JS DOM. And this for now, let's say bookmark. That'll just be the text inside of it, or that, sure, an emoji.
Watch me go.
Yeah, I was actually in my test case for this. I've got a possum, but I was going to suggest you could grab your SVG for your boop and put it in there. But yeah, exactly. And then a pen child link, and then we need to return at the end. We're going to have to do a little something weird.
Okay.
Well, let's see what happens. Actually, let's just return the content. We don't want to return content though. I don't think, do we?
Well, we didn't really modify.
At the end of where am I?
Or wait, we get the document.
Yeah, at the. Why am I returning here? Let me look at something real fast. I'm returning out of. Sorry. I'm just so used to writing things myself. That's inside of our heading. Okay, so. Oh yeah, so inside of, well, I have it in a conditional. So again, like it's a little bit weird, but yeah, return document element outer HTML, right? So that's going to get everything except for one very key thing, which we're going to have to write manually, which is a little bit weird in this. But again, like different fake DOM, Node DOM implementations may have something that's a little bit different here. This is going to break all the heck. And did you refresh?
Yeah, it's working.
What? Okay, when I did this, I had to add a doc type. So
it might. So vary. mine included a doc type. Or wait, did we lose our doc type?
Yeah, we do because we're completely transforming this HTML.
I get it.
Into that JS DOM. So I don't know why yours is working. It should not. Like in my Chrome when I ran. Are you in Chrome or Firefox?
This is Chrome.
Okay. Yeah, in my Chrome, it all sorts of broke. I got the HTML on the page, but
so you're saying like what we want to do is something like
at the beginning of that, do a string of a doc type, an actual like document type. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so doc type, or what is it? It can be lowercase, right?
I think so. Yeah. Doc type HTML.
Is this and then, self-closing? Yes. No.
It is not. No.
No.
I don't. It is not. There's no closing tag for it, but it's HTML5. You don't need a self-closing. So yeah, that you may need to.
I need to restart it, don't I?
Yeah. Because again, like this is happening in some different ways, and since you're using it from that plugin, this version of 11 doesn't see the changes happening on the other version, and there it is. You could go in, you could add a new line if you want to, but you can also use these minifications to do, or these things to do like HTML min. There's actually a plugin for that to like minify all of your HTML in one go. But yeah, so now if you click on the bookmark, it should jump us down the page. Yeah.
Yep. It does.
So obviously you could do some CSS and like show hide and all that, but yeah, we have a bookmark for each of those now.
Does what it says on the tin, which is pretty great.
Yep. So so the other thing, if we have time, or we can just wrap up here.
Let's see.
To configure it.
Do you think that we can configure it in under 3 minutes?
I think so.
Let's roll. Okay, speed run.
All right.
Here we go, chat.
In our plugins 11 config.
Yes.
When we are starting that module.exports, wherever that is. There's a second variable we're going to pass in here, which is going to be our options object.
Okay.
So anything that gets passed in as a second thing on our add plugin will come in here. There are many better ways of doing what we're about to do, but we are doing, as Chris Biscardi said, an 11 speed run, right? So we are going to, just default it to an object. And then in our project, we're going to pass in an object that has let's say header selectors or something like that, and put in there h1 comma h2 as a string.
So like header selectors.
Yep.
And we'll do h1 h2.
Yep. And so that'll be different from what we did before, so we can see it work. So save that, and then we'll go back and we'll set it up to use that. So now in our document query selector all, instead of using that, we're going to use that new options variable.
Okay. So
options.
Nah, let's not do that. Let's not worry about it. We'll just
I was
go.
gonna say you should like properly do that by adding some sort of default up there. But yes, options.header selectors should work when you restart everything.
Let's try it. And when we refresh, no H3.
1, 2, and 3 does not. Yep. So this is configured at the site level, but you could also put in any selector you want. So it could be, if you only want these on like articles, you could have article space H1 comma article space H2.
Mhm.
You could also do some things with that output path that are like begins with /blog, but that feels super brittle to me, and I'm not exactly sure I like that idea. But you could specify only where to run the output path, right? So only on blog posts or only on a certain type of document. Again, that feels brittle, and I'm not sure the best way to kind of go about that, but you could do it as opposed to running this on every single document.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of those things where, you know, as you start to dig deeper, the more complex this gets, the more you are building your own complex static site generator, right? And so I think that the maybe the decision to make when you start digging into this is like, how much custom code are you writing? Because when you exceed a certain amount, you are, instead of using a framework, you are building a framework. And you know, the trade-off there is like, when you build a framework, you get to make all the decisions, but you also have to maintain all those decisions. You have to educate everybody about all those decisions. So how many people are going to maintain this? How long does the site need to live? All those things, right?
Yep. Which is also why I hope more plugins come into the ecosystem, because that transfers each of these custom pieces out of what you have to worry about and into the hands of someone who's hopefully a better plugin author than me. You can go download like my 4 plugins. They're okay, but like hopefully there's you know, there's a lot of really good things out there. There's stuff for like hooking into Cloudinary images.
I love that strong endorsement. It's like, Bryan Robinson, come use my plugins. They're okay.
Bryan Robinson, okay at everything. Not great, but okay.
I love it. Okay, so with that being said, I think it is time for us to start wrapping it up. So let's do a quick shout out to White Coat Captioning, who's been doing our live captions today. Thank you so much for making that possible for us. And that is made possible through the generous sponsorships of Netlify, Fauna, Sanity, and Auth0. Sanity is where Bryan works, as we mentioned earlier. So super cool to get a you know, just the effort from the community through companies like our sponsors who make this show more accessible to more people. So that is very much appreciated. Also, make sure that you go check out the schedule for the show, because we've got some really exciting stuff coming up. So next week, Nat Allison's coming on the show, and we are going to work on internationalizing React sites. And Nat is like the premier expert on this. She did it for the React docs. She's worked on it with Gatsby. So, you know, if anybody's going to be able to help us figure this out, she's going to teach us. We've also got Stefan coming on to teach us about Contentful. That is going to be amazing. And we just added a ton of episodes to the show. So please go check out this schedule and let's go. Like, let's make this happen. It's going to be so much fun. If you want to get notified, you can add this calendar. That'll show up in Google Calendar. It'll let you know when new episodes are going to happen. And you will be able to join right from your Google Calendar without having to do anything. Bryan, where should people go if they want to follow up with you? Like, what's next steps here?
Sure. So Twitter has most of the links that might be of interest to folks. So twitter.com/BROB. So B-Rob. Check out my website on bryanlrobinson.com. I do stream on Twitch a decent bit, or at least I used to. One thing I do want to mention is that I'm the host of That's My Jamstack, which is a Jamstack podcast, which thank you again, Jason, for being on last season. I am out of guests right now. So if you are using the Jamstack and want to be on a podcast, even if you are like not super technical, I want all takes on the Jamstack. So here's that highly a theme on That's My Jamstack. I need to fix my logo, but yeah, we're in season 2. I got 5 episodes. We got 30 episodes total, and I'm looking for new guests. So hit the contact form on That's My Jamstack. Let me know that you're interested, and we'll record a 20, 30-minute episode.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, Chat, thank you so much for hanging out today. Bryan, thank you so much for hanging out today. Chat, stay tuned. We are going to raid, and we will see you next time. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, y'all.